Well, huge numbers of Israelis have again poured into the streets of Tel Aviv to protest the government's failure to secure the return of remaining hostages from Gaza. Meanwhile, anti-terror agencies are working hard to detect any plots which may correspond to the October 7 Hamas terror attacks, of course, a year on. To discuss these issues, we're joined now by former ADF intel analyst and counter-terrorism officer Shane Healey. Shane was deployed with the Australian Army Special Operations in Afghanistan and Iraq, and in Australia was part of the Tactical Assault Group, where he was involved in several real-time terrorist incidents. He's also Australia's leading ISIS expert. Shane Healey, welcome back to ADH TV.
Good evening, Chris. How are you going?
Very well. Let's begin in the Middle East, may we? A Jordanian driver kills 3 Israeli security guards at the border with the West Bank. This actually goes a long way to explain why the IDF always overreacts.
Yeah, but on the 28th of August, the IDF started a Operation Summer Camps inside the West Bank. So they've actually initiated the largest scale operation for a number of years. They're trying to weed out any Hamas, Hezbollah fighters, looking for weapons, looking for caches. So I just think this is one incident of an overarching operation in that area.
Huge numbers of Israelis have again poured into the streets to protest the government's failure to secure the return of remaining hostages in Gaza. Meanwhile, hospital and local authorities say Israeli air raids in the territory killed more than a dozen people. But these protests are not motivated by the deaths of innocent Palestinians, are they?
No, these are, and we've been seeing these for a number of weeks, these are purely about Netanyahu and his stance on continuing the war in Gaza, rather than his primary focus being the release of the remaining Israeli hostages. The families of those that are still hostages are the ones leading and are being in front of these protests, and they're just gathering more and more momentum until their end state. They won't stop until the Netanyahu government or Netanyahu himself resigns.
OK, are they looking for Netanyahu to resign, or are they looking for a ceasefire, or both?
Well, and their end state is the ceasefire, but especially with some other information that's been recently confirmed, it's not going to happen until Netanyahu stands down. He made the extraordinary admission the other day of apologising for the latest 6 hostages that were killed by Hamas.
And a story circulated over the weekend, Shane, about Israeli Prime Minister derailing a Gaza hostage deal in July. What do we know about that?
Yeah, the interesting thing about this, Chris, is the fact that there was documents leaked to the Israeli media to confirm this, and Netanyahu's office actually has come out and said this did happen. However, the piece about Netanyahu adding clauses isn't correct. But the fact that they admitted that he has kind of changed some of these and kept the war going is a massive win for the protests and a kick in the pants for Netanyahu, because it shows, it confirms his motives and what a lot of, especially people inside of Israel, have been saying for months now, that he's doing this for personal reasons, not for the benefit of the Israeli hostages.
So he stays in power the longer the war goes on, is what you're saying?
Well, yeah. So as soon as he's out of power, he's then before a court on fraud charges. And he knows that he looks exceptionally guilty in that criminal matter, and this is essentially his fight for survival, for his freedom, and that's why he's clinging to power so hard this time.
OK, let's go to North America now. A man has been arrested in Canada over an ISIS-inspired terrorist plot to target a Jewish centre in New York City. This is according to federal officials. Mohammed Shahzeb Khan, aged just 20, allegedly wanted to carry out a mass shooting to coincide with the 1-year anniversary of the Hamas invasion of Israel on October 7. The Justice Department described Khan as a Pakistani national. This won't be the only one, will it?
No, and in April this year there was another ISIS-inspired attack where another self-motivated, self-inspired individual in Idaho was going to target some churches. So we're seeing this pattern in America. The biggest key factor is because of how open the southern border's been, the US has no knowledge of exactly how many ISIS, how many Al Qaeda operatives are currently within the United States. So there is a lot of whispers coming out of Afghanistan, that Al Qaeda and ISIS are training and have been training for the next major 9/11 style attack. So that's what's coming. The Five Eyes intelligence agencies are tracking this. They're kind of in agreement about this. It's just a matter of looking for those indicators and warnings and hopefully stopping it before it takes place.
So are you convinced from the people that you've been in discussion with that ISIS operatives have crossed into the United States through that southern border?
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Right. Tom Slater.
Yeah, and they're quite open about this on They're quite open about this on social media.
Right. Tom Slater, the editor of Spiked, has written a piece today about how Islamist terror has returned to Europe. He says, "We have come to treat acts of Islamist barbarism almost as if they were natural disasters, awful, awful things that just happen from time to time. Islamist killings also now seem to disappear from media discussion remarkably quickly." Have we got better at foiling these plots? Please tell us we have.
Yeah, we have, which is why we haven't seen any spectacular attacks in Europe since, for over 10 years. They're low sophistication, or small groups of individuals with knives, maybe a firearm. If you remember the Madrid bombings where they bombed trains, so they're definitely, because there's a lot more coordination between the EU, Interpol, NATO countries and the Five Eyes intelligence architectures. They've got fusion cells. They're sharing intelligence much better than they used to do. They're not siloing it. So when they get those tips from various intelligence sources, they go out to the relevant agency on the ground and they are dismantling all of these networks. The biggest issue that they've got in Europe is that they opened a lot of the borders for the Syrian refugees, and there's just thousands of undocumented Syrian and Middle Eastern refugees throughout Belgium, Germany, France, and that's the biggest thing. They get into enclaves and they start their little groups from there, and that's the hardest part that these intelligence organisations are trying to penetrate using human sources.
How would you like to have an intelligence job in Europe right now?
I would love it, to be honest.
Right. But but a challenge and a half right now.
Yeah. I remember the early days of Afghanistan and Iraq where you're building networks up, you're looking for that needle in the haystack. This is what people, in my line of work, what we actually really enjoy, that long type detective type work. There's excellent people doing it. We've learned from our mistakes over 20 years. The global war on terror, it's over 20 years now. So there's very refined processes. And like I keep talking about, indicators and warnings. So we know what we're looking for on a number of levels. We know the enemy's gone through, or the adversaries have gone through a few changes. They've gone back to some old ways, how they don't use technology. So it's just an evolution of where we've been, not where we were, say, 15 years ago, where it was all new and they would change their methodologies up and we'd have to catch up. Now it's about expanding our bigger net of intelligence collection and then seeing what we find.
Yeah, no doubt a difficult time between now and the second week in October as these individuals or maybe even groups try and, create an anniversary from October 7. We would have to be on heightened alert.
I'll give you an example. So in 22nd of May 2017, there was the Manchester Arena bombings at the Ariana Grande concert.
Yep.
So they actually took place and wounded, where now they stopped the Taylor Swift one, which was inspired by that attack. Same group, same TTPs, same methodologies. We missed the Manchester bombings in 2017 and we stopped the Taylor Swift. So our adversaries are still using the same methodologies and techniques. We now know what to look for, and we found it, and the intelligence agencies and law enforcement stopped it.